sleep around here. Welcome back to My Kitchen, My Rules. So first of all, I know you're wondering about my big giant earrings. My friend Chanel sent me these as a thank you present, and they've got a hymn on them from my Sunday afternoon hymn sings. And so you should always be nice to people because they send you presents, so thank you, Chanel. So anyway, today, y'all, I'm so excited because we're gonna make a recipe I've never made before, and it's from Betty Feezor's Best. This is the woman. So if you did not come up in the Charlotte area, you might not know that she was Pinterest before Pinterest even existed. She was like the penultimate, quintessential Renaissance woman homemaker. Amazing. So the whole Charlotte area, in fact, the whole Southeast, it shut down at 1 o'clock when the Betty Feezor program came on, and my grandmother would watch it, and we had to sit down and shut up too. And so anyway, she actually had a set that was named after her, a whole studio down at WBTV. And after she passed, one of the employees took the set home. Well, I saw it in a listing, and the seller agreed to let me buy the set. It's now in my conference room. So if you know anybody from the Charlotte area who ever wants to take a step back in time and come to Betty Feezor's set, just reach on out. You can come to our office and make pictures. We've had the best train of cool elderly people to come make their picture in the Betty Feezor kitchen. So anyway, tonight the recipe we're gonna make is a broiled veal chop dinner. And I'll tell y'all why I have selected this recipe. It's because this is Betty's note. Another of my favorites. This is a good last minute dinner because it can be broiled in less than half an hour. If your husband calls in the afternoon to ask if he can bring someone home for dinner, say yes and serve this along with a good tossed salad and a good dessert, and everyone will be pleased. So for those of y'all that need to have a last minute dinner ready for when your husband says he's bringing somebody home, that's what we're gonna fix. Now it starts with a marinade. Now what do we marinate in? A Ziploc bag, thank you. And we're gonna have 4 tablespoons of, Betty says salad oil, and so I confirmed with my mother that what Betty meant was some kind of olive oil. She probably meant something from the 50s, so 1, 2, 3, 4, that looks about right. And of course we're using a Harris Teeter brand because it was cheap, and I don't understand the difference in all the different kinds of olive oil, and maybe y'all are more sophisticated than I am, but I just buy the cheap one, and all the EVOs and extra EVOs, I don't get it. And then we're gonna have some soy sauce, and I do use the low sodium Kikkomans because nobody needs full strength soy sauce. We need 3 tablespoons of that. That seems to be about right. And then we need some ketchup. And of course, I use the one that doesn't have a lot of added sugar in it because ketchup has to have sugar or it tastes nasty, but you don't have to have the high fructose in it. 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of that. Then we need some vinegar, and y'all know I like the apple cider vinegar because it's got the good flavor. But when you buy the Bragg's, if y'all didn't know, you best shake it up first because it's a whole different flavor when you don't, you know what I mean? We only need 1 tablespoon of that. I guess that's to offset the sugar in this ketchup. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just trusting Betty Feezor. She's been dead since the 70s, so I'm just having to trust her memory here. Then we need a 1/4 cup of sugar. And y'all know this is Dixie Crystals, right? We're not buying any of that other sad sugar. I was so disappointed though. I was in Tennessee for vacation. I went to the Food City because I had to buy some things to cook at the rental place. They did not have Dixie Crystals in Tennessee. I don't know what y'all are doing wrong, but y'all better get on Food City and straighten that mess out. And then we need some pepper. We need a 1/4 teaspoon, so that's like that many squirts. And then we need some garlic, and I'm gonna use minced because frankly, I don't feel like taking any out and cutting it up. Makes my kitchen stink, and I think the mince tastes fine. So that's your marinade, y'all. I'm gonna get the veal chops out of the refrigerator and put them, this is how you mix it. See, that's very satisfying too. If your children like to make slime, have them make your marinade and mush it up. I'm gonna throw my veal chops in here and set them in the refrigerator for an hour, and then I'll be back to show y'all the next step. And so you have an hour now to listen to commercials, watch YouTube, whatever. We'll be right back. Sometimes there's times the video camera had ought to be going. What y'all didn't hear before I hit the record button is my daddy talking about the reason he does not care for bourbon, which goes back to his days at Fort Riley, Kansas, before the government so graciously provided him with an all-expenses paid trip to Vietnam. So anyway, we're making a cocktail this evening to go with our dinner, courtesy of the Betty Feezor cookbook, the broiled veal chop dinner, which is coming along here shortly. And if you did not see the full recipe video, then you can go look in the archives and find it because this is a little mixer in. But because we're making supper from the 60s, we're having a cocktail from the 60s. And so for tonight, I'm going to show y'all how to make an old fashioned. Some of y'all have that knowledge, and some like to buy it at a restaurant where it costs you like $15. You can make it much cheaper at the house. So you need some bitters, and I have the Angostura bitters because that's what they had at the Harris Teeter, and get 3 dashes of that. And that's about all you want of bitters, unless, you know, frankly, you just like to have more, and I do not. And then you need a half a teaspoon of sugar, and we're going to use Dixie Crystals, of course. And you thought this was just for pound cakes? See, friends, Dixie Crystal sugar is also good for your adult beverages. And then you need some water, and you need like a couple of tablespoons worth of water. I'm gonna do an extra one because I made the other one too strong, and so now I've got to dial it back a little. And then we're gonna stir it up until that sugar dissolves. Now you could have some simple syrup to make at your house if you were serving a crowd. I guess that's an excuse for it, but frankly, y'all need to slow down a little bit in life. See, it's relaxed, and just to sit here and dissolve your sugar, yes, and then you'll enjoy your adult beverage even more. And I'm just realizing I could probably put this in the hummingbird feeder now because they like to drink sugar water, so there we go. And now we're gonna add some ice. I don't have the big fancy ice like they have at Crunkleton's. Although I did bid on that bourbon tasting evening, Gary Crunkleton, if you're looking at this, for the RPAC auction. And so if you're looking for a good realtor in the Charlotte market, then you should be my friend, and I will carry you out to the bourbon tasting with me because I can carry a guest, and maybe we'll take an Uber back to the house. And so we've got our ice in here. Now you got to add the ingredient you need to make it an old fashioned, and we're using Baker's bourbon because it's good. And my friend Carol Bradley brought this to me. Thank you, Carol. I love her. She is the president of the Union County Realtors and a property manager extraordinaire. And by the way, if you ever meet a realtor that thinks they're the only good realtor in their market, you ought to run for the hills. I'm just so glad to have so many good agents in this market. But anyway, when you're putting bourbon in your drink, it ought to be something good enough you could just sip it and drink it by itself. Because otherwise, frankly, what are y'all buying? I mean, rock gut, don't do that. Buy the decent stuff. And then we're going to pour in a couple of fingers here. And I think some people put in more than I do, but tonight I've already had one, and so we're just going to stop with a little bit. And that's what it looks like. And if you had an orange, you should frankly get a little bit of orange peel and put that around the edge and put the orange peel in. It would look super fancy. I don't have any oranges, so we're having the old-fashioned minus the orange. Tune back in for the rest of the recipe from the Betty Feezor cookbook. Promise y'all, it's a good one. Okay, so can y'all believe it's been a whole hour? So we're still having another old-fashioned here, and we have our veal chops all marinated. Don't they look good? And so what Betty Feezor says, now we are following this recipe just like we are in the 60s. We've got our roasting pan, although you can use a broiling pan, this is what I had. Take your tinfoil and make a little ridge in the middle, okay? So we've got a divider here. And we're going to use some canned corn, because you got to remember, when this stuff was coming out, these recipe cookbooks, canned things were, I mean, kind of cool. So a lot of her recipes involve some very sketchy ingredients, but everybody was glad to have store-bought things and they weren't all having to homemade things. So on one side we have corn, on the other side we have green beans. And this is, normally would have been some fresh ones out the garden, but I'm only producing like, I don't know, a dozen green beans at a time right now, and that's not enough to feed my family. So now we have a divided pan. So for those of y'all that don't like your food to touch, congratulations. All right, so then we're gonna season it a little bit with some salt and pepper. There's a little pepper around the top. Give us a little salt. Now you can use sea salt if you want, but I would imagine Betty didn't have sea salt back in the 60s. And I would probably better be using table salt to be authentic, but y'all know I like kosher. So we got our Morton's kosher salt here. And we just gonna season to taste, which to me is a sprinkling on the top. And then Betty says to put butter on it. So we're gonna use real butter. Don't be using that, I can't believe it's not butter, because I can believe it's not butter. That stuff's nasty. I don't know who ever came up with that name, but they lied to y'all. And you're not supposed to eat oleo and margarine, because that stuff will destroy your arteries, and your cholesterol level will go high, and you'll go to hospital and have a triple bypass, and then they're going to tell you you died of COVID. And so you got to be careful with what you're eating. Eat real butter with real dairy in it, because it's good for your bone density. And I'm guessing this is how Betty did it. I don't know, and there's not enough of her programs left on YouTube to see it. So we're going to cut some on top of the butter, on top of the corn and the green beans. And I'm using about 2 tablespoons worth of butter, and y'all can see that I'm using a very scientific technique here, cutting it with a butter knife. And so we're just gonna decorate it like that. And then, by the way, the oven is heating to 550. Right? I know y'all were expecting $3.50. My mother was too. She said, oh, $3.50. And I said, nope. Gotcha, Mama. We're doing $5.50 this evening because we got a broiling thing, but I'm not using the parchment paper tonight because the last time I broiled on parchment paper, y'all heard the smoke detectors go off. It was a wild evening around here. And the last thing I need is my brother texting me again, asking me what I'm setting on fire, because he's a fire chief and he's got lots of opinions on fires. And so, you know, when Uncle Bubba makes fun, my kids enjoy it way too much. Then we have our little roasting pan. You can have a broiler pan. Spoiler alert, that's the thing that comes with your stove that y'all never knew how to use. This didn't come with your stove, but I'm gonna use it. Set it on top of your vegetables here. I guess Betty had a reason for this. I don't know. And we're gonna take our marinated chops out of the bag and lay them across the broiler pan. And oh, this smells really good. I was kind of suspicious of the ingredients, but it smells quite good. So we'll just hope it tastes good. I mean, she was Betty Feezor, man. She could do anything. You don't know, y'all. You don't know. You got to go look her up. She was a freaking genius. I mean, how many people got syndicated back in the 60s? I take not many, especially not women. And her husband was a big supporter of hers, by the way. She was like breaking all the barriers back in the days when there were barriers. Not today when we can do anything and people still complain, but that's a different discussion altogether. Okay, so as soon as I'm at 550, which is apparently going to take me like 10 more minutes because it takes forever, we're going to broil this for 10 minutes. All right, so 10 minutes in the oven, and then we're going to turn over the chops and put this leftover marinade. So you don't throw it out, save it on top, and then we're going to broil it for 5 minutes more. So hang tight and we're going to see what happens next. So yeah, anything out of their boiler sets off the smoke detector, but check that out. Oh yeah, that's Betty Feezor good. Make sure you subscribe and I'll see you next time on My Kitchen, My Rules.